There's something about the Buddhist version of Genesis which has something in common with the Christian version of Genesis.
It is best to let them listen to the chanting of the monks, for they could gain more peace and enrich their spirit.
Another part, which is more controllable by our own mind, is the internal.
I just had a heart to learn, a burning desire to experience what Buddhism was at the monks.
Hit the side of the monument and spread light in all directions. So did Kun Yai.
Sawadee. Welcome to Meditation for All program, a program for all who love peace and discovering themselves. Firstly, Reverend Thanissaro will talk about Buddhist concept you may call legend in Buddhist scripture, describing the origin of the universe, which will help make connection between the level of the mind, the level of our lifestyle, and the level of our environment. In other words, to learn more about life. Having learned that defilements cause us to fall away from our natural state of being, to increase quality of the mind and quality of our life, we still have meditation as a key, so don't forget.
Welcome back to the second in our mini-series, Buddhist Concepts, within the program Meditation for All. Last week I talked a little bit in introduction about some of the connections which we make in Buddhism, which are sometimes not made elsewhere, particularly the connection between the level of the mind, the level of our lifestyle, and the level of the environment. Sometimes simply saying this is not quite so easy to imagine how these three levels of description can fit together. But today I want to tell you a tale. It's a legend, if you like, from the Buddhist scriptures, which describes what we call Buddhist Genesis. It talks about the times very early in the history of our world, before human beings came to live here on this earth. In Buddhism, often we try to avoid speculating about things which are without immediate proof, because the Buddha said that for some aspects of our existence, no matter how hard we think about them, that it's impossible to find enough proof to get free of our speculation. So in the end, one can simply waste one's time speculating. So today, when you listen to this legend from what we call the Aggañña Sutra in our Buddhist scriptures, when you hear about the Buddhist version of Genesis, then perhaps keep an open mind, treat it as a tale if you like, but if you can, try to find some of the important messages which come out of this legend or this teaching, and in fact we can learn a lot about them in terms of what we see as our ideals in our Buddhist society. Well, there's something about the Buddhist version of Genesis which has something in common with the Christian version of Genesis, and that is that they both have eating in common. The eating was the first thing to start things off, also in the Buddhist version of Genesis. And the Aggañña Sutta starts at a time in the universe when there was nothing in the universe, not even any planets. The only things in the universe were some self-illuminating beings which we call apasara, or celestial beings which were illuminated of their own minds. So that means that their minds were so bright that they gave the only illumination present in the universe at that time. These beings were able to survive simply on their own happiness and joy from all the merits which they had cultivated since the time they were human beings. Because they were self-sufficient in their own happiness, they didn't have any need to eat anything or any other need to find happiness in any other way. But at that time there was a planet which was cooling down, our planet Earth in effect, and it had already been through a world cycle where the Earth had been on fire for many years. As the fires cooled down, then the smell of the Earth was aromatic, rather like newly baked bread. And this captured the curiosity of these Apasara Brahmas, which were floating around from one place to another in the universe. There was one particularly curious Apasara Brahma, which came down near to the surface of the Earth and tasted some of this aromatic curds of earth, as we call it, which were floating on the surface of the seas which were covering the planet. When the Apasara tasted this, in fact the taste was so good that it wanted to eat more. When it ate more, in fact it was not alone, but many of the other Apasaras who were also attracted by the actions of this being ate more and more until, in fact, from their normal ethereal states they became more coarse and eventually physical in their makeup, which meant that they could no longer fly around in the universe as they had before, but they were now stranded on the planet Earth. Some of the beings which ate more of this curds of earth became dull in their complexion, as compared with the normal bright complexion of the Apasara Brahmas. And even very early in the history of our world, there was some discrimination. The brighter complexion Apasara Brahmas looked down upon the darker complexioned ones. Because the first Apasara Brahma had given in so easily to its craving, what happened was that the simple change in the quality of the mind of this Apasara Brahma gave rise into the universe to a very big change. The stars and the planets started to appear. There was sunlight, moonlight, and there started to be night and day. From the very special curds of earth, which for most people would be considered a very delicate form of food, in fact this was very quickly exhausted by the greed of the Apasara Brahmas. And in its place grew up a different sort of food in its place, and it was no longer curds of earth, but it was rather like a mushroom-like vegetable, also very nutritious. But once the Apasara Brahmas started to use this as their staple food, in fact their body found difficulty to digest it. As a result of the difficulty in digestion, there started to be the formation of intestinal tracts and digestive organs within their body. With this came the distinction of sexual organs as well for these beings. Formerly they had transcended male or female, but now as the beings started to develop digestive organs, those who had in their past never had any bad karma of being unfaithful to their husbands or wives developed male organs. Those who had bad karma in their past from being unfaithful to their husbands or wives developed female organs. So there started to be a segregation or a distinction between male and female within this community of these primordial human beings. Over the years, and the lengths of time we are talking about now are very long lengths of time indeed, not just normal years passing by, but aeons and generations, there was a gradual decomposition in the quality of the minds of the beings. Those who before were contented in their own happiness now became attracted, male to female, and although they had no need to reproduce, but they did so simply because of their desires, and they started to form homesteads in which they could hide their shameful actions. And once they settled down, then also the foodstuffs started to change from being the mushroom-like vegetables they had known into being a sort of creepers. As they became possessive about their territories, then this again started to cause the foodstuffs available in the environment to become more and more coarse, until eventually all that was left was husks of rice for them to eat. Each person would go out and harvest rice in the morning, only enough for them to eat each day, and by the evening the rice seeds would have grown back in place without any scar apparent. Later, as people became more dishonest or lazy, they found it too much trouble to go out and harvest food each and every day, so some of the more lazy ones would harvest 2 days' worth of food in a single day, so that on alternating days they wouldn't have to go out and work for a living. And even that was not enough for some. They would not respect their own territories, but they would steal food from other people's territories as well. So there was a degradation in the quality of society. There started to be stealing, and those who were caught always maintained that they had not been stealing, so there was also lying. And we see a gradual decomposition in people's lifestyle from at least 5 precepts, which was the normal way of life, into much less than that, where even the 5 precepts were not kept properly anymore, and the state of society got worse and worse until eventually the people were at their wits' end and they had to set up a king who was the person to make the decisions concerning the justice in their society. So we see this happening in the very first years of the world cycle. World cycle, I have a graph here which you can see, which maybe makes things a little bit easier. The length of time we're talking about are very long indeed. The length of time between the earth decaying and being re-evolving, with the Apsaras coming down once again to live there, is a length of time which is very, very long indeed. Some of you may have heard the example of the length of time it would take for a mountain made of solid rock, 16 kilometers high, 16 kilometers wide, 16 kilometers deep, to be worn down flat with the ground by a person coming to wipe that mountain once every 100 years. If you can imagine that length of time, we call that length of time an aeon. And the sort of lengths of time we're talking about here are not just 1 aeon, but 1 multiplied by 10 to the power of 140 aeons. This very long length of time is the time it takes for human beings to degrade from being high-level Apsaras down to a low level where their lifespan becomes gradually shorter and shorter, until eventually, passing through our own era when the lifespan is approximately 75 years, in fact the lifespan would continue to get less as people's quality of mind degrades more and more. As people cannot keep the 5 precepts anymore, their lifespan will decrease more and more, till eventually it's said, not in the Aganya Sutra, but in another sutra we find in the Buddhist scriptures, which is called the Cakkavatti Sutta, that people will be reduced in their lifespan down to the age of only 10 years. And it's said that the decrease in lifespan will become 1 year less for every 100 years of human life. This is what happens if we continue to degrade in the quality of our morality and lifestyle at the present rate. At that time it's said that people will hunt each other as if they were animals to hunt. They'll have no respect for husbands or wives anymore, and their lifestyle will be no different from that of savages or of animals. This would be the very most point of the world cycle. And when this happens in the end, there's going to be some sort of holocaust before people come to their senses and start to practice good deeds again, which will lead to there being an increase in the length of the human lifespan again. So we can see that in this legend, if you like, or in this account in the scriptures, we see that there is a very strong connection between what happens in the environment, the quality of people's lifestyle, and also the number of defilements in their mind, such as the greed which the first Brahmas succumbed to fall from their usual angelic state. But what we learn from this Aganya Sutra, which I'd like to highlight, is that in Buddhism we do believe that the original nature of human beings is good and to have a mind of high quality, but it's other things which have intervened, especially in terms of defilements, which have caused us to fall away from this natural state of being. The other thing is that our average lifespan decreases as the quality of our life becomes worse, especially in terms of the behaviors which we have. This is not something which happens automatically. It's something which we can slow down or freeze if we take more care of the quality of our lives, especially our own behaviors. We don't need to wait for us to be left with a lifespan of only 10 years, but we can try to work against that by maintaining the quality of our wholesome behaviors in our life. And last of all is the timescales which we're dealing with. They are very long timescales indeed, much longer than even science talks about in the present day. These are sometimes beyond our imagination, but it does help to explain why the historical records which we have in the fossils doesn't even extend as far back as some of the descriptions of history which we have in the Buddhist scriptures. So it's taking this much longer time scale that we learn about many of the things which I've talked about in the Aganya Sutra today. But what is important from what I mentioned is that the actions which we do affect the quality of our lives. There is an interconnectedness here. And the question is, what exactly do we mean by this wholesomeness? How exactly can we avoid the unwholesome behaviors which will lead to a decrease in our quality of life? And it's in order to give definitions of some of these that I'll be talking to you next week about some of the qualities of what we mean by the energy which we call merit, and how we can accrue this, and how this can help us to have more prosperity and more happiness in our lives. So I leave you with these things. Anyone interested to read up more can look either in the Aganya Sutta of the Digha Nikaya or in the Cakkavatti Sutta also in the Digha Nikaya for further references. But that's all for this week, and I look forward to seeing you again at the same time next week.
Death is unavoidable. Next, in Buddhist culture, you'll see how Buddhist people preparing for facing death in the last chapter of life.
We have passed through many chapters of life, from toddler to childhood, through our teenage years, and so on. Nobody knows the exact date of their last chapter. What do we do when the finale is on stage, but the final curtain is yet to be drawn? Yes, Buddhism plays an important role for the life and their family. It is lucky if a life is taken by disease. The final chapter is possibly decorated by the finishing touch of the last conclusion of one's life. Firstly, it is to clear bad events or experiences out of their memory by reminding them of good ones. Let every beautiful moment fill their thoughts and memory to beautify their feeling and tune it to serenity. Meditation will take care of the mind at this moment. It will bring the wandering mind of the patient back to its shelter. Buddhism says that this is at the center of the body, the place that the mind can shelter itself under to ease suffering and to avoid frustration. In the Buddhist way, cousins or family would ask a Buddhist monk out of his kindness to come and receive a set of robes or something necessary from the patient, and also give advice on meditation. It is the final activity the patient could easily lay the memory on. Buddhism believes that this precious moment will draw good activities all along the life to be the admirable conclusion. It is up to the family to hold the mourning ceremony at home, but it is best to do this at a temple. All of the family, close cousins and friends can ask for forgiveness by pouring clean water on the palm of the dead body. After that, all the ceremony is related to the belief. Buddhists believe that the spirit of who had already left his or her body will be around the home and family for 7 days before final leave. It is best to let them listen to the chanting of the monks, for they could gain more peace and enrich their spirit to cruise a better way, or to make way to heaven up high. The Buddhist activities will take place over the 7 days. It is also important to invite 4 monks to chant every evening. Some chant for 3 days, some 5, but most will chant for 7 days in a row. This is up to the family. Monks chant about the truth of life that is based on 4 major things: birth, getting old, disease, and death. This isn't just for the deceased, it is also for everybody gathered around to remind them about themselves and the way their life should be, because death is for everybody, every age, and every stage we stand. Death can intrude to any level and any lifestyle. So, let safety stand on the venue of being good, sharing, love, and kindness. Upon Buddhist belief, mainly in Southeast Asia, the body of the deceased will be burned down after 3, 5, or 7 days of the ceremony. But in many families, they prefer to keep the body for longer to allow all of the family members to get together. There are many things to manage, so it is good to wait for the right time. It could be 100 days or 1 year of preparation. Also, the members of the family will get ready for being absolutely departed. Life is like this. No one can be eternally together. It is better to love and be good to one another. Life is very short. It is better to make an admirable conclusion in each evening for a promise of a better tomorrow, whether we wake up or not.
As always, from Reverend Piyasiro, listen to the song of life through meditation. Let's join him.
It is very nice that we meet again. This is session 2 of part 3. We have learned, we have talked, we have tried meditation for many times, and we can go deeper about the fact of life. Life is always changing, nothing stays the same. But we will learn how Buddhist people survive the life in the plateau of contentment. Life is always swaying to and fro, back and forth, here and there, up and down. Anyway, life is always affected by the external factors. For example, the climates, conversations, finance, and all the turbulence in life. But another part, which is more controllable by our own mind, is the internal factor. For example, needs and wants, desire, anger, and so on. This can be managed somehow, more or less by means of meditation. If you would like to meditate, we shall learn together right now. If you are new to meditation, just don't worry. It is always easy to start meditation. But before closing the eyes, you can look around and you compare that sometimes two people, they have just the same things. For example, same level of income, same housing, same make of the car, and so on. But inside the mind, there must be different. Who knows, two people, one may be smiling, another one may be sweeping. But in the process of the mind, to understand the mind, meditation is the key. Now, ready for meditation? Okay, we adjust the sitting position. At least the back should be straight, and choose any corner of your own place that suits you most. And choose only sitting position. You can sit on the floor, on the cushion, on the chair, whatever you feel best. Then we shall close the eyes together. Softly close the eyes. Just allow the eyelids and the eyelashes just softly touch one another. Let relaxation arises and spread all over the face, all around the body. It is like relaxation is flowing down to cover the entire body of ours. We feel more and more relaxed, better relaxed as each minute passes by. We can take a few good deep breaths to let go, to relax and to let go. To start with, we follow the in-breath, inward, the inner body. Follow such a deep, long in-breath in. The wind passes the lungs downward to the center, to the middle of the abdomen. And then the in-breath will turn out-breath. At the turning point where the in-breath turns out, this is the station of peace. We call this the home base of the peaceful mind. That means whenever the mind is situated or the mind rests here, the mind is really peaceful. Allow the mind to stay still at this station of peace inside the center of the abdomen. Make sure the body is thoroughly relaxed. Each breath is really soft. The mind is always soft and gentle over the station of peace. It is as if we are really still in the surroundings that always move here and there. But that doesn't matter at all. As long as we are still, so calm inside the station of peace, we are okay always amid changes, fluctuations, and everything that moves. It's like we are in the center. We are the center of everything. We have been in the center of our own sky. This is the sky of contentment. Every time the mind is at the center, we are in the middle of the sky of contentment. Remain motionless in the center of the sky of contentment for a little while. We are gaining more and more stillness because the mind is always at the center, at the station of peace. We are gaining more tranquility of the mind. The stillness we are gaining is not the stillness of the still body. On the other hand, we are talking about the stillness of the mind. When the mind is still, we can enjoy life despite the movements of everything outside. So we can be smart, so smart and cool in the chaotic world everyone is facing. Stay still. Make sure relaxation is with us all the time. Make sure the mind moves no more at the station of peace. Continue the moment of peacefulness for a little longer in quietness together. We just then confirm the existence of the mind at the very center of the abdomen. Confirm that the mind is always here. This is the origin and the base. It is the base for the understandings of life. When the mind moves no more, no longer, the mind will get to understand the very fact of life. Life is up and down, smiling and sweeping. And to get to the center of peace, here at the turning point, we have got the full understanding of life. This is the power of our living when we get to understand 100% or next to 100% the fact of life, the nature of fluctuation of life. So we are always happy and unaffected about the fluctuations of life. So we can live happily amid the song of bittersweet. When it's bitter, we understand. When it's sweet, we cherish it, understand it, and learn to live the life in the tide of rise and fall, in the taste of bitter and sweet. This could be achieved by going back to the station, to the place where understandings are created. That is the station of peace. We start in meditation together. Enjoy the moment where the mind is at the station of peace. Then sharing is going to take place. We shall share inner peace to every being from this moment onwards. Starting from a tiny dot, a spot in the center of the body. Let the inner light inside the station of peace. And we get a bright dot, and we expand the feeling of peace. When the bright dot is growing to be a bigger sphere, this is the sphere of peacefulness shining in itself. It is shining because this is the nature of the pure mind. Buddhism specifies the size, the shape of the mind as a sphere form. It has the attribute of being so bright in itself. So our shape of the mind, carrying peace, is expanding, growing bigger and bigger, letting us a chance to enjoy more and more peace of mind. Allow us to expand and start to share inner peace to everyone else. So allow the mind to grow, to expand endlessly, where the rim of the sphere touches the horizon all around, 180 degrees. So we share inner peace to create world peace. Let each and every soul be touched by our inner happiness, and then which they are all happy together with us at the same time. And if time comes to an end, we start to confirm again the existence of the mind at the station of peace in the middle of the abdomen. Take a good deep breath again. And we can count down from 3 to 0 and slowly open up. I'd like to say to you, ladies and gentlemen, congratulations. And if you look around again, you see everything remains the same. But the feeling of yourself inside is not the same. It is better, more peaceful, and this is a peace you created by yourself. This is the fruits from meditation. Hope you enjoy meditation further and further until we meet again. Sawadee. See you next time. Have a good meditation progress, everyone.
Next, we'll meet Vera Röngtrakul and Richard Esposito in a special interview on the occasion of the International Ordination 2006 at Wat Phra Thamakai, Pathum Thani, Thailand.
Sawadee ka.
สวัสดีครับ
Welcome to today's special program on the International Dhammadayata Ordination Program. Today with us, we have Richard Esposito, an Italian-American originally from Brooklyn, New York, and who now resides in Thailand. Please welcome Richard.
Thank you very much, Am, for having me today.
So to start off, I'd like to ask, why did you decide to ordain as a Buddhist monk? What prompted you to ordain for 3 months?
It's a very good
for
question.
1 month, was it?
It's approximately a month and a half program. It's a very good question, and it's a long answer, but I'll give the short version. I had the opportunity many years ago during the Vietnam War to both meet and study Buddhism in Ubon, Thailand. It was a very unique experience, and the relationship I established with the abbot of that temple many years ago literally changed my life when I began to understand and have a working knowledge of the basic precepts of Buddhism. They made supreme sense to me. The law of karma, the concept of rebirth, the elements of the Buddhist faith that talk about morality and put the basic emphasis on progress in life and how we are all subject to the consequences of our actions. And Buddhism to me made supreme sense. As the years passed by, I thought that the most important thing to do that anyone can do is to take your faith up or your belief up a certain level, and ordination as a Buddhist monk does that. You become deeply involved with what Buddhism actually is by leaving your current lifestyle to enter the monkhood to understand the basics from the ground up, literally.
And so, with these experiences, coming from America, and with your experiences there, what did you do to prepare yourself for these differences as a layperson or as a person who isn't a Buddhist monk and as you ordained as a Buddhist monk?
That's a very good question. Another very good question. To prepare myself, I knew internally that in order for me to grow in the Buddhist faith, I would have to ordain. I would have to take that step to bring my knowledge and practice of the knowledge up another level, to kick it up a notch, as we would say in the West. After having gone through the International Dhammadayata Ordination Program, many of the things that I experienced there, I would pass along in this program to other people that are interested, young men that are interested in experiencing monkhood for the first time in their life. I went into the program not very well prepared as far as what to expect, but having been passed through the program and now a product of the program, I'm very well versed on what the program can provide for all those that are interested. So in the way of preparation, there was just basic preparation about the curriculum, what was to be expected and what I should expect, but it was very basic. Now, having finished the program, I'm in a better position to help others understand what they will be experiencing in the program. So to answer your question briefly, my preparation was very minimal going into the program. I just had a heart to learn, a burning desire to experience what Buddhism was at the monk's level, which is a great opportunity to do that.
And so now that you have ordained and been through the program, what advice would you give for those who are contemplating ordaining as a Buddhist monk?
There's a factor that everyone should consider when entering anything new for the first time. There are terms like culture shock, which perhaps is a little strong, but when one considers entering the Dhammadayata ordination program, one should prepare themselves by, number one, understanding that this is an opportunity to learn at a very particular level, a very special level. In philosophy, there's a branch of philosophy that's called epistemology. I know it's a big word, it sounds very big and complex. What epistemology means, what it studies, is how people learn. Some people learn when you're a child. If you learn to play piano, you learn through repetition by repeating the scales over and over again. Some people learn through memorization. That's how actors hone their craft, memorizing lines. When you enter the International Dhammadayata program, the ordination program, you get to learn at probably the most basic and the most profound level of learning that can be experienced by anybody. You actually learn by example. You have teaching monks that are with you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, who not only teach you Dhamma from books, but they actually live the life. So the greatest way that one can learn is through example, and having the opportunity to live as a monk, to be taught by men who have dedicated their entire lives to the Lord Buddha's Dhamma, is the most profound experience anyone can really have in the way of life-changing experiences. So, or learning from a master, or learning by teaching monks is perhaps the most important way one can have a lasting effect. Teaching can have a lasting effect on anyone's life.
So for those who are going into this program for the first time, do you have any words of advice for preparation? Perhaps would you recommend for perhaps looking and learning about the Dharma, or about what they are to expect by following monks, or by what would you recommend?
I think the most important thing is to begin to prepare your mind. There are certain adjustments that people have to make, or that young men and men that enter the program should make. If anything of any value in this life is worth anything, there's a price to be paid. Anything free, they say the best things in life are free. The sunrise and the sunset and the ocean waves, and those are beautiful. But other things that are of great value cost something. So when you enter the program, there are certain elements that one should be prepared to experience. Certain elements called sacrifice. There are certain things that you will have to let go of. Your life will be made very simple. Your clothing, for example, is reduced down to a certain set of clothing that monks will wear. You have certain items of toiletry, that's all you will have, in the area of toothpaste, shaving equipment, so on and so forth, reduced down to basic minimums. So in preparation, one should understand that you're going to get your life down to very basic necessities. There'll be no distractions as a monk. You'll be able to focus your life on the most important things that will have the lasting value. For example, Dhamma, morality, concepts of ethics as taught by the Lord Buddha. So it's a mental adjustment you can begin doing now as you prepare for this program. There are areas that one might say are Spartan, which means you're given the basics of life to live with. And if you can begin to adjust your mind to that type of mindset, you're going to do well in the program. So there's sacrifice involved. I think it's very important to tell people that are going into the program that you're going to be challenged. And there are sayings that it's a great thing for a general to conquer a city, but it's even a greater thing for a person to control himself, to conquer his own self appetites, his own self-willfulness. Once you're able to do that, you're able to step up your life to a different level of consciousness and awareness. So living together as a group of monks, which is known in the Triple Gem concept as the Sangha, means you become less and less of an individual, and your focus is on your brother's welfare. So there's an element of sacrifice involved, so you should begin adjusting your mind now that it is a great opportunity to ordain as a Buddhist monk, but it also requires certain sacrifice and certain effort on your part.
For example, the 227 precepts that the monks have to uphold.
There are 227 precepts, and they are specifically designed for a monk's life.
Can you explain how these precepts work as a Buddhist monk?
That's another good question. You have a lot of good questions today, Anne. Taking control, taking command of one's life means a change of thought. Every action before it's committed, a thought occurs first. Ideas occur in our minds. We must learn to take thoughts captive. We have to take into captivity thoughts that enter our minds and understand the origin of these thoughts. Good actions are only the results of good deeds, are the only result from good thoughts. Whatever you think, say, or do becomes as an idea, comes to us as an idea first. The concept of the precept concept in Buddhism, whether it's the basic 5 precepts for the lay person or the 8 precepts or the 227 that a monks are required to fulfill, are all part of a discipline to take control of one's life and not to be swept around like the waves of the ocean. People continually, every day of our lives, people are swept around by wrong ideas, wrong thoughts. Like the waves of the sea, they go in, they go out. As a monk, your life is patterned after a certain discipline, which is the highest moral level one can strive to reach. So these precepts are guidelines that one is committed to follow. And you receive a benefit from this effort. Yes, it does require sacrifice. You no longer are self-willed. You focus your life in a direction that has a greater benefit, a far-reaching benefit, not only for yourself, but for those around you. So the precepts are necessary, they are rules, and they're necessary for one to follow to take command of one's own actions in their life.
And so you talked about some of the benefits. So for you, what made the deepest lasting impression as you ordained, and how did this affect your life as a result of ordaining?
I think it was Socrates that said many years ago, he said the unexamined life is not worth living. And a more profound statement I don't think has ever been made by anyone outside of the Buddhist faith. If you live your life without examining the reasons why you do the things you do, whether it's simple acts from day to day as we live, whether it's things that you do that have been created by habits, wrong habits, or whether it's something, predispositions that you're born with, whether it's cultural orientations or families, hand-down habits to sons, to daughters, fathers to sons, mothers to daughters, and so on. Without examining the reason why you do the things you do, you're condemned to repeat errors over and over again. So one of the greatest benefits I've received from ordination as a monk was taking the time out of a lifestyle to stop everything and examine my own life, using Buddhism as a mirror, using the precepts as a guideline. So one of the greatest benefits I have received, not only through the discipline of the Dhamma, but through meditation, is the understanding of the true nature of things I'm confronted with. And Buddhism teaches this in depth: right vision, right concentration, right effort. These things don't happen by accident. They're cultivated. They're good habits that are cultivated. I think in psychology we are taught that it takes 21 days to create a habit. I think they've actually measured this. It takes 21 to 27 days
really?
to change a habit. They've actually measured these things. And if it takes 21 days to create a habit that can last the rest of your life, whether it's smoking, drinking, speaking wrong, speaking things, exaggerations, lying, whether it's positive efforts on your part that become good habits, they are created and they are obliterated by what we do and what we think. So one of the greatest benefits I've received from ordination is to examine my life continually, daily. This is taught even at the extent of life and death. We're taught even to meditate on our own death. One of the greatest illusions that Westerners have, myself included up to a certain point, is that death is going to come to everyone but not me.
Right.
I'm going to live to 125 and die with all my grandchildren.
It's not something that's thought about or meditated upon.
And in Western culture, it's actually frowned upon. Death is something to be ignored or something not to be spoken about in public, even at funerals, when you go to Western funerals. And being an Italian American, weddings and funerals are very popular activities in my culture. You'll see how bodies are prepared with makeup. They don't look like anything they did in life. It's to make something as painful as death to some people to be as pleasant. The reality of life is that we are all going to die. And if we understand in the Buddhist precepts and the Dhamma, which teaches us to be mindful of these things. So one of the great byproducts I received after ordination as a Buddhist monk was training my mind in these areas, to contemplate my own death, to contemplate death, period. And that the only thing permanent about life is change itself. So be careful, being careful about the attachments that are made, the actions that I do, to be mindful of the things that are spoken and done are one of the greatest benefits anyone can hope to achieve, lasting benefits from ordination. You don't necessarily have to ordain as a Buddhist monk to be aware of these things, but to be involved as a monk where all distractions are removed from your life so you can focus on these timeless concepts is an incredible opportunity. It's life-changing.
This week, Tour on the Temple. Vera will take us to listen to the awakening voice of Dhamma at Wat Phra Dhammakaya. Let's follow her.
สวัสดีค่ะ Hello and welcome back. My name is Vera Rungtragul, and today you're joining me on the tour of Wat Phra Dhammakaya in Pathum Thani, Thailand. Last week, we went to see the land of Dharma, known as the Ubosot. This week, we will go and listen to the awakening voice of Dharma. Can you hear the sound of the bells? 5 years ago, this place used to be the home of the bell tower of Wat Phra Dhammakaya, whose sounds could be heard during every Buddhist ceremony, and whose white reflection in the water reflected the purity of the Dharma. Each ring of the bell served as the voice of awakening to all beings in the samsara, known as the cycle of life. So follow me, and we'll take a closer look at this important structure. Nowadays, the bell tower is no longer here, but has been replaced by this pillar of light. Honoring the late founder of Wat Phra Dhammakaya, Kun Yai Maharatana Ubasika Chan Konok Yung, who spent her every waking moment teaching Vichā Dhammakaya, the Dharma of the Lord Buddha, to everyone, starting off first with Lung Po Tamachayo, the current abbot of this temple. Her planting of the seed of Dharma in the heart of Lung Po Tamachayo soon served as the motivation for the creation of Wat Phra Dhammakaya to serve mankind in search of peace and happiness. Her method of teaching was simple but profound, based on the law of karma, or the law of cause and effect. Her deep and meaningful words reached the heart of everyone, and her tireless efforts left its mark on this world. Without her, Wat Phra Thamakai would not exist today. This pillar of light is lit every evening to honor the memory of this gentle but fearless lady. Next to the pillar of light, we have the Mahavihan, Kunyai Ajahn Maharatana Ubasika Ajahn Khon Nok Yung, a golden six-sided monument with a statue of Kunyai inside and with a green floor, symbolizing the prosperity of her teachings. So you might ask, why is this monument six-sided? Well, just as the sun's rays hit the side of the monument and spread light in all directions, so did Kunyai spread the teachings of Lord Buddha in all directions. Wouldn't you want to come and see this for yourself? Until next time. สวัสดีค่ะ
That's it for today. We hope you enjoy our program. But don't forget to tune in next week, as there will be the continuation of the last chapter of life in Buddhist culture and a special interview. Until then, goodbye. สวัสดีค่ะ